right over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Thanks, Nighthawk. I'm Dave.
And I'm Mickey.
He sure is. And we are on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on, and this is the website name, revolution.radio, where it's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations in the chat room. And it's also a great place to get your merch. Do it. I've got my merch, have you? This is show number 627.
720 and 600. Lots of shows.
Oh, that's good. It's such a good number. Now, but who knew, right? Did you know that you can catch us on air, online, and anywhere on your smart device to grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio? They still owe me. If you missed Solaris's show, you know, you don't have to have missed it, but if you did, it's okay. She had a great guest on today. Always had a great show, by the way. David Russ Tanner. No, I'm David. She had Russ Tanner on, and they were discussing geoengineering. And as usual, a great show. Sadly, I did miss it, so I'm going to get it from the archives, which are free. You can download things in MP3 format. Do you remember that, when you had to know what the file extension was and how many kilobits per second it was done in? Yeah, like 128k or something, right? Whatever it was, Mick. I forget. So it was such a long time ago. Such a long time ago when we had to rip things so we could listen to them on our iPods or our MP3 players if you want an Apple fan person. So initially, in fact, Music Match Jukebox was an app that you got with the first Apple iPads, where you could rip all your music for free because you owned it. You'd bought it the right to play it when you bought a real CD. And Music Match Jukebox would rip it for you, and well, that's when the world went crazy with file sharing and just shared all the albums ever made, ever. And that's when Apple went, you know what, we're going to just make our own music library, and you're going to have a fee for every song to add to your library. And then everything started getting really complicated. Like, people died but left their music collection, which included their iStore collection, and Apple had to change the rules because the law people, the law talking guys, decided that was a thing. So you could hand it on to somebody else. But then, of course, you know what? It's so much cheaper just to pay a subscription and you know, all the library that you could ever want is kind of like to Spotify or one of those other platforms. So I have that for the family. I pay a subscription and we all get Spotify Premium, and also I pay a fee so we can all have YouTube Premium without any ads. And it's weird. I remember when paywalls were a thing, Mackie. When to get to something you had to pay money to be able to go on the other side of the wall where all the things were. And that's what they've done to us. Otherwise we have to endure advertising, which makes everything on YouTube so uncomfortable to be interrupted every minute or so because there's an ad of some kind. My kids can't watch free-to-air TV because there's ads. They can't stand it. And anyway, I'm going to get on with finishing the opening. So, I'm going to say access to those archives are free. You can actually binge. Do the thing. Binge. And last but not least, I'm broadcasting from Bundjalung country. Mickey, where are you situated?
I'm in Darak country.
Beautiful Darak, yes. And Mickey and I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Mickey, did you see the news with the Starship launch?
The news with the Starship? I want to say no.
Well, it's the third launch of Starship. The first one didn't go so well. The second one Remember the term that I said the booster experienced a rapid unscheduled disassembly? That was the second launch. This time, they separated just fine, and they both lost comms on re-entry.
Oh, okay.
So, but you know what? There was 1,000 changes made to Starship between the second ship that went up and the third one.
I want to say something about this whole space program, unless there's a more pertinent point you want to make first.
No, I'm going to fill in some art when you're done. Go ahead.
Okay.
Your time starts now.
So, as I always do, I look at a whole bunch of stuff and listen to a whole bunch of people actually involved in the work, right? And recently, there's a couple of people from NASA. One was a lady, I can't remember her name, the other was a guy. But they're both saying, this will be the first time we'll be leaving low Earth orbit. And in my head, I was saying, since the moon missions, right? That's what I was saying in my head.
You added that for her.
Right? Yeah, but
Yeah.
the other NASA person said the same thing. and I go, okay, so because look, I've known a long time about the Van Allen belt and a whole bunch of other
That's
stuff, right? And the truth is the Van Allen belt has,
It's radiation. It's
lethal.
radiation belt.
lethal radiation that'll cook you.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Apollo mission craft, they were so much aluminium for, right? And in fact, the only thing that shields you properly is really is lead. And people say, "Oh, there's no medium through which you can transmit." Well, that's not entirely true because the vacuum is not a true vacuum; it's full of particles. But as soon as the radiation hits something solid, it has something to congregate in. You see, that's the thing. That's what radiation does. It just accumulates. It's like when light hits something, it illuminates that thing, and light is just another form of radiation. So, and they kept talking like that, and they listened to a few other things, and everybody was talking like we had never left Leo, low Earth orbit. And I'm going,
we destroyed the 12,000 data reels we had on it.
Yeah, we did. And we did destroy the tapes from the first landing as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I shouldn't say that. We can't find them anymore.
That's correct. They taped over them.
No.
That was
I
what
lied
they
to you.
said.
They taped over it.
Yeah, taped over it.
What? So the thing is this. Plus now, okay. So just to put it in perspective, 1969 rolls around, July 20th. You know, we all think we've gone to the moon, and again, I'm not going to get the argument whether or not we did. Several other Apollo missions followed. Some Apollo missions were cancelled, but some say they were not cancelled, but they did go to the moon. Like namely the three last Apollo missions that were meant to happen, but then officially were cancelled. But again, I'm not going into that. But there's it's not just one or two, right? The body of learning at that point was almost 20 years. Because the moon mission started in the early 60s,
Yep,
and they went through all the way to the late 70s.
that's right.
Let's call it 15 years to be
It's better than 20, yeah.
Yes. So 15 years of learning, and several, according to the Americans, several people having been on the moon. We walked on the moon, we did this, we did that, etc., etc. We've been there many, many times now. We know all about how to get there, and we can't get it right now. It's been 50 years.
No, we
And it
destroyed all
seems-
that technology, Mackie, apparently.
But see, that's what I hear. We destroyed it all. I mean, I've actually heard this in documentaries and in interviews. We destroyed it. What does that mean? We destroyed it. That makes no sense to me. I'll be honest. Like, what I mean is this, right? We can make glass. We've been making glass for a long time. When the first glass makers came around, it was a huge secret, and anybody who would steal the secret of glass making would be put to death, right? But we've been making glass ever since, right? Even if somebody somewhere stops making glass, right, a company goes out of business, but it goes back into business, they still know how to make glass. And it's not that easy. It's not as easy as people might think, right? And it's not as hard as going to the moon.
Yep.
But I'm astounded. And not only us, it's the same with the Russians. What has happened to all this knowledge, this mountain of knowledge, as it were, when it comes to going to the moon? Well, and now they're talking like, and this is true. Oh, we'll go there for the first time. What? No.
Oops.
You've already been. You said you've been.
Then now
I find it. I mean, look, did they misspeak? Did they mean now for the first time in 50 years? Look, whatever. The point is, we seem not to be able to get it right.
I remember
right?
when.
And forget Mars for a second. If you forget that,
Oh, that was my segue.
If we can't get to the moon, right, properly, there's no way we'll ever make it to Mars. It's just not going to happen. But you know what I mean? It just seems so odd.
Yeah. Do I know what you mean? Boy. So I remember when Cernan was on TV, and twice in the same interview, he said that we want to go back to Mars. He never mentioned the moon at all. He actually said we want to go back to Mars. And so that threw everybody for a loop. Like, what? Did you know that they transmitted the signal back with a 12-volt battery from in their explanation of what the kit they had said they had with them on the moon?
There must have been booster stations along the way, surely. 12 volts.
No way.
What are you gonna do with 12 volts? I'm sorry. Put it on your tongue. Ow! Ow! Ow!
It's happening again.
Have you ever done that? I've done it.
I've done it.
Sorry. I've done it.
9-volt battery's easier because the terminals are on the same end.
That is true.
Yeah, and the ones with the big springs, the big, we called them dolphin batteries, but it was really 4 D batteries in one sitting over the top of another 4. So that's how they got to the 12 volts. So a mixture of series and parallel. So that's what you found in the original torches, those big square batteries. Remember those? With the springs on top?
I've got them sitting in my shelf because I have these floating yellow emergency flashlights still at home. So,
well, if you actually don't do it, but if you pull them apart, you'll find there's 8D batteries in there.
Oh,
and it was
is that right? Really?
Yeah, totally. It was. That's all it is. There's nothing really special about it. They're just not, label wrapped. They're wrapped, but they're not label wrapped to sell individually. So anyway, the whole moon thing is nuts. You're right, and to hear them, even if you're right, if they were just, let's be kind, they were misspeaking. Yeah. Hang on a minute. And wouldn't you, at the interview for a job at NASA, be asked the question, do you think we went to the moon? And you go, oh yeah, absolutely. Because, I want the job, so
that's right,
I'll
baby.
say anything. Yeah, we went to the... And wouldn't you think that every day there'd be, like, I'm only kidding, subliminals being played through the audio system, the, fire evacuation system. We went to the moon. We did. We really did. Because I remember them saying that we lost the designs, the telemetry, all the data, it's all gone. And look, sure, we went to the moon with less power than a mobile phone, but we don't have any of that technology anymore. And some videos that I've watched recently, very recently, in fact today, looks like shower rails and aluminium foil and gold foil, right? When you examine really deeply the pads that the lander showed in Apollo 11, once the photos came back, apparently, that's interesting, didn't have any dust on them, not even from their landing retro or their rocket. So they were, that's I think a big clue right there. If you want any clues, that's one. Number 2, Mekki, we've talked about this. The astronauts themselves, totally pleased to go, came back, and they interviewed, and you can watch this, it's all public, and they just look like they've got their families at gunpoint, off stage somewhere, right? Wrapped in C4, and if they misspeak, they're all gonna die. It's kind of what it looks like, because they don't look at all pleased. They don't answer the questions with any fervency and zeal. There's nothing. They don't want to be there. They don't want to even speak. And they even nudge each other. It's all there. And even that... So what did the stars look like? Through the atmosphere, it's dull. So it must have been amazing. And then they look to each other for an answer. And it's like, I don't recall seeing any stars. What? They even had a sextant.
I watched
Mickey.
it. Yeah, I watched it. I said, I don't recall ever seeing any stars. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's so
Really?
wishy-washy. Yeah, because they couldn't do that, Mickey, inside the soundstage.
But
Right.
I agree with your assessment that they looked extremely uncomfortable sitting there. I mean, they had just gone to the moon. You're going, hey, I've just been to the moon.
The
Look at me.
heroes.
I'm
The
I'm
heroes of the
man. I'm not a
planet.
man. I'm the man.
They saved democracy.
So they say.
They saved America's financial system.
Yep.
The livelihoods of every American going forward for generations. They saved it. They're heroes. And yet, they don't answer any questions like it. They don't sound like someone who won a race or a sporting match.
Oh, that's right.
Because that's who I'd think they would be. And of course, then they all went quiet and they weren't allowed to answer any questions. And they wouldn't even swear in the Bible. Remember that guy was harassing the hell out of them and got punched? Just put your hand in the Bible and say you went to the moon.
I saw that.
That's all I'm asking you to do. And then Buzz gets so mad he punches him. But what's worse, Mickey, is in 1969, after they came back, they handed diplomats around the world in visits, handed them moon rock. It was one of those, what do you call it? Not consultant. What's it called? It's a diplomatic thing, right? Where you give someone a gift and they give you a gift, right? So the visiting party always gifts them. They handed these moon rocks over to diplomats around the world, presidential, leaders of the world. None of them were real. Not a single one. They had them tested. One was petrified wood, to be honest. Says one of the tests came back. And even if you tested it and it just appeared to be something like, earth rock, which would make sense. It's not still against the rules, but they weren't even special kinds of rocks. They were just rocks you'd find with the same isotopic ranges as here. It made no sense. And they were all declared fake. Every last one of them. So look, it's a hot topic. And I do like, I said Gene Cernan, I think that's his name. It was one of them, anyway, saying going back to Mars. And that kind of, it keeps bringing to the top. It boils something to the top with me. I was talking to a guy yesterday at a car meet, and when he discovered that I was not into conspiracies, because I don't believe a lot of them, that's what I said to him, and he goes, you've just lost, you're going to have to earn that back now, right? I lost faith in you straight away, because something about conspiracies. And I said, I'm going to be honest. And he pointed upwards to the sky, and he said, he goes, what about chemtrails? And I go, well, we debunked chemtrails. How, what? I go, yeah. So I think that was the only one he believed. Right? And I said, we probably didn't go to the moon. Just probably. I'm not saying, definitely, and there's proof we didn't. But it's so strange. But anyway, so Starship version 3, whose plan is to sell missions to the moon for NASA and then move all the very rich people to Mars, because then they can live happily ever after, right? Right. And I keep thinking the only reason they're pushing the EV is to get enough money for Elon to provide the parasites with a vehicle.
And that's the thing, right? this is the parasites that aren't in the know, and I'll get to that in a second because I did some other research. You're right. So these are the parasites that are regular billionaires and the regular folk, and these are the people you find on the list, right? Of billionaires of the world. I mean, these are the ones that are out in the open. There are many of them. In fact, I'll tell you how many there are. There are, in fact, 2,640 billionaires in the world.
Oh, wow.
That Forbes is counting. Yeah, 2,000. But I'll talk about that in a second. So I think you're right. Those guys, they're not ready, and they don't know what's going on. Or the vast majority of them don't know. And the real ones, and there's a very interesting point to that as well, they, of course, don't give a hoot about Elon Musk or any of the spaceships. You do what you want. I'll just teleport over there, thank you very much. But before I go on, though, there's one other thing. There's another angle to the moon rocks as well, which is that they're a lot older than the Earth when they were tested. Always assuming they're actually from the moon, right? They were older than the moon, and they have got all the wrong isotope counts. So
That's what I was talking about, the isotope balance. Yeah.
They have nothing to do with the Earth at all. They're not from the Earth, because there was a theory that at some point an object hit the Earth and scooped up the Pacific, or what was not the Pacific yet, and that then formed into our moon, which of course is incorrect as well. But ultimately, the moon, and we spent a lot of time on the moon. It just makes no sense, all right? And I'm just astounded.
What about when the Russians drilled into it and it was like they hit metal?
They couldn't. Yeah, correct. It's the key
like
thing.
Shiny metal.
Yeah. But the biggest problem in that context are the craters. Now, the moon craters are of a uniform depth.
Yep.
Which is impossible. That's right. On the Earth, if something hits us, the bigger the thing that hits us, the bigger and deeper. More importantly, the deeper the crater is. Just how it is. It's called physics. We've been playing with it for some time now. But
I've heard of it.
On the moon, and bear in mind, on the moon doesn't have an atmosphere to speak of. So if something hits it, there's nothing.
It's going in full throttle, Mickey.
Yeah, nothing burns it up. That's
my
right.
Star Wars
right?
quote for the day.
But all the craters on the moon are of the same uniform shallowness.
Yeah.
They're way too shallow for the impact energy that must have been released. Way too shallow. So yeah, you're right. So they just couldn't drill because it's a really hard surface. I mean, never mind that it rang like a bell, and it means probably it has large hollows within it. I'm not saying the moon is hollow. I'm just saying there are large hollows within it, and we know this for a fact because
on the other side they talk about there being like a large radio dish and a tube.
Oh, they found all kinds of structures on the moon.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Richard Hoagland. And the thing is this, it has been proven now, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that NASA did, in fact, manipulate.
Doctored the photos, yeah.
Yeah. Now, for whatever reason, right, but they have... Why can't they show us the pictures as they are? Just as they are. Just show us... I don't care if they're bad quality. I don't care if, if the pixelation is not very good or whatever, right? And show us the moon in true color as well, please. Because what you see when you look up at the moon is not what the moon looks like, because we've got something called atmospheric diffusion.
And Mikey, have you ever been in a forest in the snow?
Exactly.
Everything looks black and white.
Exactly. Now,
because it's washed out.
That's right. It doesn't have to be the snow, but go wherever you are, wherever you live. Go to the highest point you can find, and look into the distance. The atmosphere, our atmosphere, will eventually turn into grayscale. It just will. It could be the height of summer, I don't care what it is, but the further away you look, the more grayscale it becomes. It is because our atmosphere washes out the color. Now, our good friend Jose Escamilla, who's now passed on, of course, did a lot of work with the Clementine mission pictures and so forth.
The archive, yeah.
If you want to have a look at that, please do. It's fascinating stuff. And he captured what is now called transient lumen phenomena. Transient lumen. I think it's the transient light, lunar light phenomena. So they've seen these lights on the moon, which appear
They have for
in craters and
400
elsewhere,
years
and
or
then they
more.
go away. And
Yeah.
so they've given it a name, so it's a thing. It's not like it isn't a thing. So none of it makes any sense at all. There's no mechanism we know by which this could have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, the whole thing just stinks to high heaven, right? It really does.
It's got 9/11 all over it. So,
Oh.
so that's what's really bizarre. Yeah, is I remember Jose was saying that he did the moon image, and they remarked, "How did you get the colored version of the moon?"
Mm.
And he's like, "Well, it's from your archive." Right? And so there's obviously one that they hadn't done in black and white. But yeah, all the brightness washes it out as well and doesn't, it doesn't help. And one of the astronauts had also mentioned that the soil looked kind of brown. So, like it was organic brown. But I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it just appeared brown to them. But who knows what the truth is anymore? Because how much of what they say then is the truth? I don't want this to be like. I know what we're sounding like right now. What this show currently today, the news is currently sounding like. It sounds like we're all moon landing haters, and everyone's going to hate us for it.
Not wrong. But there are too many unanswered questions. There's too much evidence of manipulation for, in my opinion, no good reason. Just straight answers. I mean, it's, the old joke is never a straight answer, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
so,
what NASA stands for.
Yeah, and I would like to just well, me, not just me, a lot of people would just like a straight answer on a whole bunch of stuff, right? Because the thing is, one of the biggest mysteries, really, is that we didn't go back for 50 years. And I know people say, because the Cold War tensions changed, blah, 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 Vietnam War, etc., etc. Well, no.
And there was no public interest in it, Mickey, apparently.
Yeah, apparently, right? So, the thing is...
What they funded... Were they funding NASA from the advertising during the broadcast? Because it didn't broadcast for long,
But
most of it was on unfunded news, because that was cross-subsidied by the regular programming on a channel back then.
Yeah, this is the thing here. And it goes completely contrary to our very nature, human nature. That is.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout our entire history, we've always pushed the envelope. We had to go further. We had to go across that mountain. We had to go across that little lake. And we had to cross the oceans. We had to cross the desert. We had to find the source of the Nile. We had to do this. We had to do that. And people had to do that. People felt they had to do it. I mean, for various reasons. Glory, riches, whatever it might be, right? And the moon or space is just the next one of those. I mean, we're doing the same thing on the Earth. We're trying to get deeper into the ocean, which is actually harder than leaving the Earth because of pressure. But, again, physics. It's a lot harder to get to the bottom of the ocean than it is to leave our atmosphere. It really is. Yet we're doing it. We've been doing it. We've been trying for this whole time to get closer to the bottom of the ocean. We made it. We got pretty deep. We went down to the San Marian Trench. Not manned mission or peopled mission, but certainly a mission down there. But the moon, no. We have been playing bus driver in low Earth orbit for 50 years.
Yeah, that's
prior to the latest missions, right? But before I forget it, Dave, I need to mention one other thing because this really bothered me a lot.
The floor's
I've been watching.
buddy.
Yeah, look, I've been watching a lot of documentaries again, a whole bunch of stuff, and this is about the mechanism of Antikythera. We've spoken about this at length, and we it's one of those things where you go, my God, I mean, what a lucky thing to find one, right? Because it wasn't mentioned anywhere that I could find in my research. Dave hadn't found anything, so it was just this sort of, not a new part, but certainly was this thing that just we found by luck, but clearly there had to be more than one.
Luck. Yep.
Yeah, there had to be more than one, because this was just a pure dumb luck find of shipwreck near the island of Antikythera. They brought it up, and for 50 years it just sat in some box, but then finally somebody got interested, etc., etc. The rest is history, but we hadn't found anything else like it, right? That's why we didn't, I guess, have an interest initially at first, because we just didn't. We looked at it as just a bit of crusted bronze. Who gives a hoot, you know? And now, after watching a few things, and I don't mind cross-promoting the Y-Files here either, they're saying, no, we had lots of mention of these kinds of mechanisms in literature. And I thought, no, we don't. Never, because I looked at it a lot.
Yeah.
It was just like a thing that, oh my God, and the constant refrain, the constant echo when it came to this mechanism was, and we wouldn't build anything this complicated for another 1600 years.
That's right.
That's when clockmaking in Europe started, things like that, right? But it was a constant thing, and now, believe it or not, I find these articles. There's this article, Tales of Times Forgotten, right? The Antikythera theorem mechanism was not unique. Written December 24, 2019. Now,
that's got to be
I'm pretty sure that we did Antikythera between then and now. I'm going back through our archives, but I'm pretty sure we did. But here it is. Here you go. There's a quote here from Derek de Sola Price, which says, nothing like this instrument is preserved elsewhere, nothing comparable to it is known from any ancient scientific text or literary allusion. Now, Derek de Sola Price was the guy who was initially interested and he got the mechanism X-rayed, etc., etc. Now, he was a scholar, right? But apparently this article says that's complete nonsense. There's absolutely literary evidence. Now, this person then gives us a quote, but apart from this quote, this person then says, blah, blah, blah. I've quoted here something that everybody should know, and then there are at least a half dozen other passages in classical Greek and Roman texts describing devices similar to the Antikythera mechanism. Really? So I want to read you the quote here, and this is from Cicero. He wrote this. Cicero lived from 106 to 43 BC, so more than 2,000 years ago. I want to read this thing to you in full. I shall lay nothing new before you, said Philus, nor anything discovered or thought of by myself. I remember, however, that C. Sculpius Gallus, a very learned man, as you know, when this same phenomenon was stated to have been seen, being by chance in the house of M. Marcellus, who had been in the consulate with him, ordered a sphere to be placed before him, which the ancestor of M. Marcellus had taken from the conquered Syracusans and brought out of their wealthy and embellished city, the only thing he had possessed himself of among so great a spoil. He had heard a great deal of this sphere on account of the fame of Archimedes, but did not admire the construction of it so much, for another which Archimedes also had made, and which the same Marcellus had placed in the Temple of Virtue, was more elegant and remarkable in the general opinion. But subsequently, when Gallus began very scientifically to explain the nature of the mechanism, the Sicilian appeared to me to possess more genius than human nature would seem to be capable of. Gallus said that the other solid and full sphere was an old invention, and was first wrought by Thales of Miletus, but afterwards was delineated over with the fixed stars in the heavens by Eudoxus, the Canadian, a disciple of Plato, which adorned and embellished, as it was by Eudoxus, Aratus, who had no knowledge of astronomy, but a certain poetical faculty many years afterwards extolled in his verses. The mechanism of this sphere, however, on which the motions of the sun, moon, and those 5 stars, which are called wandering and irregular, are shown, could not be illustrated on that solid sphere. But what appeared very admirable in this invention of Archimedes was that he discovered a method of producing the unequal and various courses with their dissimilar velocities by one revolution. When Gallus puts his sphere in motion, the moon was made to succeed the sun by as many revolutions by the brass circle as it actually took days to do in the heavens, from which the same setting of the sun was produced on the sphere as in the heavens, and the moon fell on the very point where it met the shadow of the earth, where the sun from the region rose, blah, 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 blah. Where was this when I looked for it? And I'm not unkissed by the classics. I'm telling you right now. And I didn't know this. I mean, this passage describes a mechanical machine like the Antikythera mechanism. It really does. But
yeah,
Dave, I slipped.
No,
I'm sorry.
I know, that's what every time he slips, something happens to me. So we did the show in 2016 about it.
Yeah.
And unless this is some kind of astroturfing
Well,
to
could
make
be.
it like, oh, you know, it was everywhere. Everyone had one.
Yeah.
You know, we're all talking about it. I wonder what the year would have been, Meki, that they were making these references to them. What do you think?
I don't know. Well, this one was 2,000 years ago, right? But here, this article is from 2019, right?
Yeah.
That's when this was written. Now, I haven't found any other articles. What I have found is articles that say that it is a unique.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah.
So who is right? And I'm looking at the Britannica here as well, right? I'm going to spend some more time on it, but there's no mention here of other.
It's still it's basically referring to it as unique.
Well,
Is that
sorry, no, I lied to you. The last paragraph here. The widespread existence of such devices can be inferred from references in Greco-Roman literature, particularly in the descriptions left by Marcus Tullius Cicero. Again, the same thing I just quoted from you.
Yeah, right.
See that doesn't. I hate to say this, but this reference didn't exist before. It just wasn't there. Far out.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Far out.
I was watching a video on the Burkle crater. Now, Meki, you and I have spoken about the Burkle crater in our
Yes.
flood myths, and that's the crater that's near Africa, far west from Western Australia, in the ocean bottom, where a large comet, it's presumed, or meteor has struck and provided a 200-meter high tsunami across Australia's west and southern faces, also New Zealand, Africa and South America as well. It went everywhere, and apparently there was also 2 bits that broke off, and they're still finding that research, that fell into the Pacific, North Pacific and South Pacific. So that would be consistent with everybody experiencing something, and all the stories to be true. So that's dated at around 5,000 years ago from today. So that's why I was wanting to know whether it was lost and it was a pre-flood thing or it was a post-flood thing.
Yep.
That's why I asked. Because very little is still around from
That's
the pre-flood.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, sorry, I've just found here. Sorry, Dave. I found
What have you
comes
got?
from academia.edu. So www.academia.edu. This is actually a scientific paper written in 2014 by Xenophon Moussasis, Department of Astrophysics, Astronomy and Mechanics, Faculty of Physics, School of Science, National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. Okay.
Here's an intro.
Well, it's called the Antikythera Mechanism, the oldest computer and mechanical cosmos. Okay, it goes here. Is the oldest known advanced scientific instrument, etc., etc. Probably around 100 BC. That's when it was made, etc., etc. Is a calendar. It's an epitome of Greek natural philosophy as it models the universe using mathematics, following the Pythagorean doctrine that numbers determine everything and describe nature. Sure enough, etc., etc. The plates, blah blah blah. Shows position of the sun, festivities, wonderful. It's on display at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. So if you're ever there, go do yourself a favor and have a look at it. And I think they've also got a reconstruction there of what it would have looked at in its heyday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it is an astronomical instrument much more advanced than any astronomical clock appearing after the 14th century in Western Europe. Okay. The mechanism has its roots in the theories of Thales, Aristarchus, Apollonius, Eratosthenes, and notably Archimedes and Hipparchus. The ideas were continued by Posidonius, Islamic astronomy, and most notably in the Byzantine era and later in the West after the 14th century. There is nowhere here where it says that Cicero mentioned
Ah.
This is a scientific paper
Mm-hmm.
by a dude from the Athenian University, and he works in his department was what, physics or astrophysics.
That's what
whatever I
his
said.
job is. Yeah.
So, look, I'm at a loss here, my friend, because people now say, "Oh yeah, we mechanism theory. Yeah, we had millions of those, millions." No, you really didn't.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we didn't get anything like it again until like the 14th century, really. Just. I mean, you can. I'm completely at a loss here, because when I watched this episode of the Y-Files, I thought, no, you're wrong, AJ. That's wrong. You're completely wrong. Right? Because I like the guy. And actually, I like what he does too.
Yeah, me too.
I don't mind saying this because he does it well, and he might not always be on the money, but he does. Well, he's got a staff of researchers, so I hope he
I
gets
know,
his
we're
stuff.
so jealous.
But well, the staff would be good.
If you want to fund us so we can do it full time,
look, I'm
that'd
happy
be
to.
great.
But yeah, but there's nothing here, because you would say, oh yeah, well, mechanisms like this, have been discussed, or Cicero here made a mention of this. I mean, I would put that in my paper. Right?
Totally. Well, I wanted to bring something up, that I found in Wired magazine. Completely something. Well, it was shared with me. I didn't find it. It was shared with me from one of our listeners. Thank you very much. And feel free to do that. You can find me on both Discord and WhatsApp and Signal and Messenger, and it doesn't matter where it is. You can just email us through the website as well. Now, this is from Wired magazine, and I would believe that they'd be, vetting their articles that they're posting. I've trusted them for such a long time. I did have like 200 of their monthly editions, but now it says new far right. I'm going to actually put it on middle screen so I'm not just reading it. A new far-right conspiracy claims Boeing's accidents are intentional.
Whoa.
Crazy story. And it says, following a series of incidents involving companies' claims, some conspiracists are baselessly alleging that Boeing is failing on purpose as part of a global plot to bring down Western civilization. So I think they're trying to hit that mark. But it doesn't really do that. Their story doesn't really do it. Then there was a whistleblower, Mechie, who had retired out of Boeing for a long time, and his statements were probably best. I'm just going to pull them up for those people who are watching from home, because I was really surprised to see this. Now, that should help everybody if you're watching from home. So, Boeing whistleblower John Barnett found dead in the US. And he was, at the time, he was giving testimony.
Sit by a car conveniently.
Yeah. So he worked for them for more than 30 years. He also said that they were reusing bolts from the waste bin. So these were ones that they were either cross-threaded or their fit was terrible, or for whatever reason they were in the waste bin and they shouldn't have been used, but people were using it. So it's like the management were, I'm going to presume that, because it doesn't go into as much detail as you really want in his testimony here, but he said that the practices that the company were doing as a whole, including all of the staff on their own accord, whoever, I'm not going to say they were instructed, I can't say that, but he was saying that no one cross-checked, so if there were bolts tightened up, no one looked, and the plane was skinned and fitted out, and that's why those door plugs were going bye-byes. So they found bolts missing on some of those door plugs, says the media, not me. And so the fact that he was, retired for 30 years, worked for him for 30 years, retiring in 2017, decided to do a whistleblower lawsuit, and then suddenly he's kaput. He's kaputted. Right? So what happens to the lawsuit? Well, if you're the one bringing the lawsuit's dismissed.
Yeah.
Because now the claimant's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Plaintiff gone. Bye-bye. The case no longer has any interest. Unless the state brings it. If the state brings it, then it's different, right? But the state
the aviation, whoever it is, organization that looks after aviation globally, would then have some concern about having to follow.
But are they a co-plaintiff? I mean, if this was his thing, then no.
Yeah, then it's gone.
It's all over.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe for 1 second that accidents, especially when they involve people in the know, people with power, people that could be considered special interest people, I don't for a second believe that those are actually accidents. Whenever there's a plane crash or ferry disaster or house on fire or whatever it might be, I ask the question, who was in it? Who was there? Or what was being transported or whatever, right? I mean, because these things don't accidents happen, don't get me wrong, right? But when they happen to people like that, I don't think that's an accident. And people might talk about proportionality. Would you bring down a whole airliner full of people just for one person? And the answer, invariably, for every single national security agency, is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Invariably. Always.
Yep.
100% they would. Look at what they do with these drone strikes. There's a target.
Yep.
It's even been the subject of movies. A target, but they blow up the entire house, apartment block, whatever.
Yeah.
Just a one target. So would they bring down an airline? Absolutely they would. You gotta be kidding me. Are you nuts?
Remember, there was the plan, wasn't it? The FBI plan or something to fake a basketball team's return from Cuba.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, to crash into some monument so they could then. It would have enough buy-in to be able to attack Cuba.
It was actually Operation Northwoods, and the CIA had a plan to. It was in the planning stages. This was back in the '60s, right, when Cuba was an issue. But
there was a talking point. They wanted to be able to attack Cuba for some
but
reason.
as a pretext, right?
Yep.
But don't tell me for a second that this doesn't ring any bells. Okay, so
there's another date that comes to mind. I can't remember what it was. Yeah,
it's a reality, 100%. Look,
right.
we know it was dismissed back then as a thing, but these things are recycled. I can't remember how many times my company or companies I've worked for have recycled an organizational plan. Are we going to restructure this way? And then 5 years later, are we going to restructure that way? But we just came from there.
You're alternating.
Yeah, it's
That's
hilarious in many ways, and then that's unfortunately how it works. Now, sorry, before the hour is up, I have to say one other thing. And this is really important. Okay, so like I said, 2,640 official billionaires. Okay, that's how many, and they are worth $2.2 trillion. Wrap your noggin around that. It's $12,000 billion. That's what they're worth.
That's enough money.
That's enough money. But you know what is funny? I'll tell you what's funny. So I did a search on the list. Jeff Rothschild is the only Rothschild on it, and he's number 518 with $5 billion in the pocket. So that's it for the Rothschilds. That's interesting. No, I'm serious, right? You're going, what? That doesn't sound like the thing. Because the truth is, the true Rockefeller. Oh, look. Oh, no Rockefeller at all.
What about Rothschilds?
No Rockefellers at all. No, there's one Rothschild, which you never heard of, Jeff Rothschild.
Jeff, right.
Dark horse.
Anglicised.
So I know for a fact that these families, these are, by the way, not just people, but it's like, for example, this guy here called V. Sure Wrong with Family. So it is the individual plus family. If it's family fortune, they also recognize that, right? No Rockefellers, except for the Jeff Rockefeller guy. Okay, all right. No Rothschilds. Okay, except for the one. Sorry. Not Rockefeller, Rothschild, the one Jeff Rothschild. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. And what it shows you, though, that the official list doesn't include the actual parasites. Only the hangers-on parasites, you know, the ones that aren't really, most of them wouldn't be read in, because that's too big a group to read in. Making $1 billion, in my mind, is not enough to get you on the inside of this very exclusive club. That's my opinion.
Right? Well, it's never happening for me.
Probably not. But 12 trillion. That's the billionaires that we know about. $12 trillion. The world. I will say it one more time here. This is why I'm saying. This is why I want to talk about it. We can no longer afford billionaires. The concentration of that much wealth, $12 trillion, in the hand of 2,500 people. Right? That's a village. That's a village. They could all live in a village somewhere in the mountains. It's criminal. It is obscene to have this happen on the planet. In right now where we are, it's completely obscene. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say on that.
Oh, well, I'm glad you did, because I think I sent you a meme today, or I tagged you in something, and it was about the wealthy are building bunkers or going to their bunkers because they can't get to Mars.
That's right.
Or something like that. It's got Bill Murray. It's the poster from Stripes. But this is... It says a lot about the cutoff between the two groups. Yep. And I know that they're certainly making themselves survival bunkers. In some cases, they're occupying or cutting out a mountain beneath their house. The largest ever private residence, Mackie, that's in the what's that mountain range in America?
Appalachians?
Where they have all the old, is it the old mine underneath? And they can drive the trucks through it into the mine.
Oh, okay.
Use it as storage.
Not Mount Shasta.
No. Look, during the break we'll...
I think the range you're talking about is in Colorado.
No, I think it's west of that.
West of Colorado.
Sorry, east of the Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
It's a long mountain range, which all the retired submariners live.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like people who know something moved there.
No,
yeah.
It's always disconcerting when why are they clustering here, boss?
No reason. They're just friends. Okay, they're friends. Yeah. They want to have massive acreages with huge underground bunkers. That's what they want. Yeah. Because it's important for some reason. There's currently an iceberg that when it breaks, it will raise the sea level a meter. Just if you hadn't have thought, it's pretty big.
It's not Younger Dryas significant, but it's pretty bad.
Well, a lot of civilization will kind of New York would turn into Venice. We'd almost lose all our infrastructure. I wouldn't be able to catch the train into the city anymore.
Well,
that kind of thing.
Catching a ferry.
Yeah, they could establish a ferry. But you know what? The big question is, why do we have to go back to work at the work building? Makes no sense, and it's actually causing all the things that we've hated for so long, like traffic jams.
Cheyenne Mountain Complex?
No. Anyway, I'll let you know during the break. But this is the end of the first hour of Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out. There's a short break coming up, and after the break, we'll be back for our show topic, the one we missed out last week, which is the COSREV Mirror Time Travel Remote Viewing Part 6. So, use the break to donate. And we'll see you in a minute.